This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Caitlin Pyle, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I am here with Kevin Meng, who is a copywriter, content writer, blogger, and wordsmith, self-described, love it, who's been writing online for more than 3 years. Now, he considers himself a pen for hire writer, but recently has been niching down to increase his efficiency and his earning potential. So I'm excited to dive into that. Kevin is unique because he started from scratch and he never had a writer's website or relied on any of the freelancing websites for income. He's all 100% organic. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here.
Cool. So where are you joining us from today?
Right now I'm in Prague, Czech Republic.
That is so cool. And are you native to the United States, or from which country are you from originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from Connecticut, but I spent a lot of time here in Prague, and I feel like this is kind of like my first or second home.
Nice. And I see you've also been to Chiang Mai in Thailand.
Yeah, I spent the last 2 winters in Thailand, mostly in Chiang Mai, but also in Bangkok.
Cool. So you're really living the work in your life. Well, I'm super excited to talk about what you do for a living. So really exciting intro, especially about the whole all organic, not being on any freelancers' websites or anything like that. So let's give us a little background on who you are.
Well, I mean, it's nothing too exciting. I'm originally from Connecticut, and I studied in school for a couple of years, but I didn't really like the degree I was trying to pursue. And, I always wanted to work from home, especially with writing and from my laptop. I think my problem was the same as everybody else's. I didn't know how to get started. I had a lot of skills, but no experience or connections. And, I had to figure out a way to do it.
Well, I think that is actually quite exciting. And I know that some folks listening at home are probably thinking that is actually really exciting because you're a normal guy. You didn't have any experience yet. Somehow you're still, let's see, what did you tell me? Making about $3,000 a month. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know how it ended up this way, but it did.
Well, you're just a normal guy. And if you can do it, if I can do it, then anybody listening to the show can do it. So I'm excited to get into that a little bit more. Was there like a light bulb or a Eureka moment for you where you just decided you're going to go and travel and live in Czech Republic, live in Chiang Mai, things like that? Or was it more of a gradual thing that just kind of happened?
Yeah, I think the first one was a Eureka moment. I was living in Connecticut. I was pretty close to New York City. I just had like a pretty normal office job, and I was pretty miserable, the whole thing, like up early in the morning and traffic and unrewarding life in an office, and then home at night and rinse and repeat. So some people I knew had traveled to Czech Republic, and I saw the pictures, and I thought it was gorgeous. So I just Googled it, and I saw some ads about being an English teacher there. And so, yeah, that was it. That was like the Eureka moment. Like, if I felt that it was pretty easy to do and easy to get a job. So I made the jump. But getting into content writing took me about a year. I wasn't really happy making just a little bit of money teaching English, and it was long hours and lots of travel, and not enough money for me to travel really anywhere outside Czech Republic because the currency really wasn't that valuable.
Yeah, and that can definitely be a problem, and I think a lot of people go to Chiang Mai in Thailand just because everything is so inexpensive compared to what we're used to over here in the US, and yeah, even in Europe. So how did you come across the idea of being an English teacher in the Czech Republic to begin with?
I saw like the ads, I saw some blog posts about it. I saw that, and you know how like Facebook tracks everything you do. And it's like, I think I got on Facebook the next day and I saw like a couple ads like, hey, are you looking to teach English? Get your TEFL from TEFL Worldwide Prague. And then they like basically guarantee you like a job. Like I said, it's really easy. Like they basically just funnel you into like a school that's here. And so you're pretty much guaranteed a job after a month. So it was pretty easy. Making the jump was a little bit stressful, but actually once I got here, it wasn't that hard.
It sounds like in this scenario, getting started is the hardest part. And for those of you guys listening at home, what Kevin just said was TEFL. That's actually an acronym for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. So TEFL is the acronym for that. Cool. So pretty much a guaranteed a job. And yeah, I think the hardest part for most people is not the fact, hey, is this viable? Is this going to work? Is, do I really want to go live in another country? And what's involved in all of that? And I kind of went through when my husband and I decided we were going to go to South America for a year. And at the time it was only Ecuador. We thought we were going to go live in Ecuador for a year. And just the kind of the realization of, okay, we're actually going to do this. Now we need to figure out how to do it and what it's going to be like down there and kind of prepare ourselves. And I spent probably a good 2 or 3 days kind of feeling like I was becoming a different person. Like I just had this overwhelming sensation that life was going to be different from here on out and that I was becoming a different person. It was very, very, I don't even know how to describe it at this point, but just surreal, I guess. Just this kind of feeling of who am I? This is a whole new world is opening up to me. And it was just a sensation that just rocked my world. And so it was a cataclysmic moment for me. And so it sounds like making that decision, kind of a that's it, no more moment for you to go to the Czech Republic was very similar. So tell me how you transitioned then from doing the English teaching to freelance writing.
The transition went a lot smoother than I thought it was going to go. I mean, I had always made like some side money in school, like tutoring writing and writing some stuff here and there. So I knew I had like a knack for it, and I knew lots of people were doing it. It's just I couldn't figure out how to do it, So I just Googled it one day when I was home after work, and I stumbled upon a site. It was a Location Rebel. Basically, like it had been a post that some guy had written about how he started writing articles for SEO companies, which is search engine optimization. It's it's like a giant industry for online marketing. He basically laid it out in a pretty good post, and he opened up his email to like questions, and I sent him an email. He sent me some advice, and I just followed it. It was a lot of work, but I mean that's what you have to do if you have no context and you have no background. I had no degree, I had no proof that I had any experience in writing. I had no contacts in the industry, so you really need to just get out there and hustle and convince people that you know what you're doing.
Wow. You said something really key there is that you took the person's advice and you actually did it. And a lot of people it's happened to me before I even started my first blog, Proofread Anywhere, where people would say, how do you do what you do? And they would ask me a ton of questions. They would send me emails and I would answer all the emails, and then they just wouldn't do what I told them to do because they're like, oh, it's too much work, or I'll get to it when I get to it. And so that was a big reason why I started, charging for what I teach, because when people pay for stuff, they, most of the time, I mean, you seem to be an exception, which is excellent, but so many people, if they don't pay for something, then they don't value it, or they don't think that it's going to work for whatever reason, because they just didn't have any of that upfront investment. But if you pay for something, then you're like, okay, I'm going to get my money's worth and stuff. So very, very similar situation. So few people actually did the stuff that I taught them, but the people who did had excellent results, very much like yourself. And one of my earlier students ended up going to Ecuador even before I went down to Ecuador, and was able to do about $2,200 a month, which is a queen's ransom down in Ecuador.
And Thailand too, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Thailand's very similar. The minimum wage in Ecuador, I think, is $400 a month, or even less than that. I think it was like $350. And so I don't know how people live on that, but $2,200 a month is life-changing money for living in Ecuador. I mean, it's life-changing money for a lot of work at home heroes as well. Many people write in and they're like, I just want to make an extra $500 a month, an extra $1,000 a month, an extra $200 or $100 a week. And people don't realize how easy that was. So tell me, you haven't used freelancing websites. Tell me what it was like to land your first gig.
I'd be happy to. I just like to say that, I have used freelancing site in the past. I definitely used a little bit of Reddit, like For Hire, the subreddit, for people that, who want to pay like bare minimum, like 1 cent a word or less for your work. And I did use, what was at the time, Elance, but I never relied on it. And I only actually ended up getting one client from it. And that was just like a one-off project. And I had already had like a steady client base by then that I built organically. So I guess I don't want to say I never used it. I didn't need it in the beginning, and I've never relied on it for income or anything. To get into how I landed the first client was I just used Google to find, and this was based off the advice I had gotten, I didn't come up with this, to find every SEO company in New York, which is obviously the best place to search because, biggest market in North America. And I got a list of like 50 emails or more, I'm not quite sure. And I just sent like a personalized email to every one of the CEOs of the company saying like I was a writer from the local area. I'd be willing to write for cheap. And I didn't even have any samples. I just made 5 samples up, like just about topics I knew about, like some things I'm interested in. Like I was living in Prague at the time, so I wrote about which bars to go to in Prague. I wrote about basketball. I wrote about just generic things like traveling abroad. And I said these were my samples that I had written before, even though that like I had never actually been paid to write. I think the key here is to like not give up in the beginning, because I didn't really receive any emails. And, you feel defeated. And it's like, oh, I just wasted 3 days of my life sending out all these emails. And like, I knew this wasn't going to work. You have to like tune your brain out and realize like this is a process. If it were easy, then everybody would be doing it. And yeah, eventually I heard back from some of them. And the first client I landed ended up being from Connecticut. And I worked for him for a while, up until about last year as like a freelancer.
That is absolutely gold, Kevin. Sticking to it, even after, 3 days of work, so many people will get through those first 3 days and then they'll feel discouraged. and they'll start telling themselves, hey, this isn't working, and so I'm not going to keep doing it. And that's the worst thing you can do, is to find yourself up against a tree and not realize that you just got to back up and look around and see that there's a whole forest of trees that you could potentially run into and, bang your head up a little bit and get injured, but you can navigate around those trees. And so any of those self-doubts that come up in the process of being consistent and not giving up are just navigable obstacles. That's all they are. And so instead of looking at those obstacles as reasons to give up and go home, we should just look at them as challenges, inevitable, and everybody's journey. There's no path that is completely without obstacles. And I'm sure you guys are listening at home. I've seen that meme floating around where it's like what you think success looks like, and you think it's just, up and to the right? When the reality is it's like all over the map, and the general trend, just like the stock market, is up and down and way down. Then you end up in general trend over time. If you're consistent, you're always making progress, even though if you look at a minute percentage of that tiny little scale, that graph chart or whatever, if you look at just a tiny part of it, you might look like a failure. But if you step back and look at the entire process over the long term, not 3 days, but 3 years, even 3 months, you're going to see a lot more progress than you're going to see in 3 days. So you've got to stick with it, which you did. So that's excellent. Stepping back a little bit, it's funny because we were just talking about stepping back from obstacles and looking around and saying, hey, this is not a reason to give up. We're going to
segue. Well done.
Little segue, I know. Stepping back, and I want to ask you about your life before I just want to kind of paint that picture a little bit. Were you loving life? What caused you to have that kind of pivotal moment where you're like, nope, done, going to Czech Republic type thing?
I don't want to say like I was in a bad place in life. I just think I was in a typical place where, I was not really feeling college, and I wasn't really enjoying the work life. I was unfulfilled, and I was just kind of living the basic life of working all day and then sometimes going to the gym after work and then coming home and, walking the dog. And then it's like doing the same thing over and over again. And I wasn't happy with it. I felt like I was wasting my talents. And the thing is, like, I guess the education that I got didn't really prepare me for using the talents that I had. I think that's a big problem in the educational system now. Like, we have a pretty narrow view of what people are capable of, and we expect people to figure it out on their own when, like, it's not our fault. It's just we don't know what we're capable of. We don't know outlets for it. We don't know, the best places to apply the skills that we have. So, now with the internet, there are like a lot of resources, and I'm pretty lucky and happy that I found the resources online that pointed me in the right direction. So the kind of motivation for me was just to get out of my like daily rut and go to Czech Republic and do something new.
Yeah, because why not, really? Sometimes people would probably have asked you, why are you going to Czech Republic? And maybe you answered, why not? The same thing happened to me. If you're like, why are you going to Ecuador? I was like, why not? I can. So
yeah, it's the best decision I ever made. Like, when I left for Czech Republic, I envisioned myself teaching English, for who knows, like maybe the rest of my life. I never would have guessed that I'd be ending up in Chiang Mai and then Bangkok and then Penang and Kuala Lumpur, Athens, Belgrade, like just all around the world, and meeting amazing people and building like a freelance service and attending conferences and all this kind of stuff. Like, you never know what's going to happen. You just need to make the jump, like stop worrying about everything that can go wrong and just focus on taking that next step, We
talked a little bit about, you're generating somewhere in the neighborhood of around $3,000 a month. And in your application to be on the show, you mentioned that it's easy to earn $2,000 a month as a freelance writer. What makes you say that?
I think it's pretty easy, like in my experience, compared to like how hard I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought I would work forever, relatively like a long time to build up because that's what you read online. Like, you read about a lot of people who are putting all they have into it and they're not making that much. I think that as soon as you get like the right direction and you find the right niche and you start building some connections, I don't think it's really that difficult to make between $1,500 and $2,000 a month, especially if you're working every day. Like, it's not a vacation, right? If you're working 5 days a week, all you need to do is make $100 a day, or even like, okay, $75 a day, and you're making, good enough money to live, like you said, in Ecuador or Thailand or Malaysia, the Philippines, even some places in Eastern Europe.
And it really starts with, you said $100 a day. And I think that that's a really good goal to aim for. Some people are like, I got to make $2,000 a month, or they set this, what seems like a really lofty goal. And it's just a big goal to chew on. And so if you break it down into what you said, $100 a day, then that all of a sudden becomes more doable. So you focus on, some days you might hit it. Some days you might completely knock it out of the park. Some days you won't quite get there. And it just all kind of depends. But if you make your goal, okay, $75 a day, $100 a day, and just kind of use that as your goalpost, then multiply that by, 20-ish working days a month, and you've got $2,000. And I think many of us just think of that as just a lot of money. And so it makes us not want to even get started. So, and you started at what, 3 cents per word, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think my original freelance agreement was somewhere like 2.5 cents to 3 cents per word. If that. I remember working for 1 cent a word. I wrote 2 articles for free just for the guy to give me a shot. It was some company in Mumbai. Sometimes you're just going to put in a lot of work that doesn't pay a lot in the present, but pays back dividends in the future. And you just need to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, working at home in general is not a way to get instant gratification. You've got to have consistency.
Yeah, it's the worst way to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's true in many aspects of our lives, just getting healthier, building wealth, building great relationships. It's not what kind of effort you put in the short term. Like, hey, I'm going to be really nice to my husband or my wife or my significant other or my pet or my kids for like a week. And then that's great for the whole year. Like, that's not how it works. And I'm not going to just go to the gym for a week and eat healthy for a week, and then I don't have to do it the rest of the year. And it's the same thing with this. Like, you're not going to work really hard for a week and then expect to be rich by the time you're 40. Like, it just doesn't work that way. You have to do it small and, consistent. It just compounds the interest. It's kind of the way I look at it. All the work that you do little by little is like putting small deposits into the bank account of future you. And if you continue to do that over time, then it just kind of blows up in your face one day and you're like, I don't know how I got here. And it seems like that's exactly what you did, because you just said at the beginning, you're like, I'm not really sure how I got here.
Yeah, I really don't. I think I worked for it, but also there's a lot of luck, and there's just a lot of happenstance, and there's a lot of, just one quick tidbit I think that people need to know is, like, especially with like online, any of the online industries, they're big, but they're really tight-knit communities, and people, they use word of mouth a lot more than you might think, and a lot of them are in Facebook groups. A lot of them are in industry groups or attending conferences. And when they need something, they don't go to a job board, or they don't go to freelancing sites for the good paying money. They just ask a friend, like, hey, do you know a writer? I need one, and I need a reliable one. Like, so if you're working for some guy for like 1 or 2 cents per word, and you do a really good job, the value you're going to get back is the fact that this person probably knows somebody else that is in a similar spot to them and needs a similar service. And, I've had people that I worked for a year prior tell me like a year later via email that, hey, they're working for a new company and the CEO wants to talk to me, and they went to me because they knew me personally. So, just tell yourself that, like, every time you're doing a new job, it's like half of the value is coming from building this network and your reputation and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a very important point, as building relationships, and really, and that's in my Work at Home Truth Bombs ebook. And if you're new to the show, you don't know what that is, you want to head over to the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group, and you can type in the search bar. Once you remember, you can type in Truth Bombs, and that should come up for you right there. We talk about building relationships, and that's largely what business is. It's a relationship, like a transaction. So you have skills, Kevin, and you are exchanging those skills for money. You're solving a problem for these SEO agencies. And you're right. You said earlier, and I absolutely agree with you. It is a huge, huge industry. SEO writing is key to driving organic search engine traffic to all these businesses' websites. Like, any kind of business you could possibly imagine needs text on their website. And a great way to do that is by hiring writers like you, Kevin. So there's absolutely a demand for it, and building those relationships is key. Figure out where writers hang out. I mean, you talked about, there's some Facebook groups and things like that. I'm not going to get into, the specifics of what those groups are, but that's just one example of a place that you can hang out with writers and figure out what issues they're having. You can be one of those people who sees, hey, I need a writer. Who do you recommend? You can just chime in, hey, I'd be happy to do the work, and, start building those relationships or answer questions, or even be willing to work for free or cheap to build your portfolio. And this is especially useful for people who want to get started and like writing, but they don't necessarily have experience. You can create those opportunities and be proactive going out there and creating those opportunities instead of just kind of sitting and waiting for the opportunities to come to you. And I think that's a huge mistake that many people make, is they maybe will have experience. And I think college kind of teaches this to you. Like, you have experience because you went to college, you have this degree because you went to college. And so you kind of just expect to be handed a job. And that's just not the way it works. But we're taught that. We're conditioned to believe that going to school entitles us to some measure of success. And it just doesn't. What problems you solve entitles you to financial success. And the bigger problems you solve, the more money you can make. So really it comes down to what your skills are. And you don't need to go to college to get the kind of skills that you're using over there in the Czech Republic right now. So what was it like when you're first starting out in your local sphere of influence, like when you told people that you're going to go and, work for yourself, whether it was, starting the English teaching thing? Did people think you're crazy? We're like, oh my gosh, like, are you insane, Kevin? What were people like in your immediate network?
I think actually like most of them were pretty supportive. I think most of my friends even at the time didn't know I was doing it because I was, kind of doing it after I got home from work and whatnot. Maybe they would have been skeptical of me anyway because I always say I'm going to do things and I don't do them, So my partner at the time was like really supportive and kept encouraging me to do it. And I had somebody that was keeping me accountable. I didn't want to say I was going to do it and put all that work and then just give up. It kind of helped, push me further and further. I don't know. I had a lot of support. I told my family about it, but my father didn't really understand. He thinks the internet is like inside your computer. And he thinks like he doesn't get it, and he doesn't understand that like I make money on the internet and that money goes into a bank account and is useful like in the world as currency. So my family was kind of on the outside of it. My immediate circle was pretty supportive, I think. And like I said in my notes, like even a friend of mine about a year or maybe like 10 months after I had started doing it, I kind of just gave him the same tips that I'm giving now. And he did the same thing I did, like said he was going to do it and did it. And it worked for him perfectly. And, I was just living with him in Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur. We spent some time in Sardinia and Belgrade, now here in Prague, Czech Republic. And he was doing the same thing as me, teaching for a decent wage, but nothing special. And now is like living a dream that I think he'd wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah, because your life now is completely different to where it was. And there's no denying that. And so any haters that you guys listening at home, if you got haters in your sphere of influence, it's just because they don't understand. They've never done it themselves. And so their immediate reaction oftentimes is fear, and they love you in most cases, and so they want what's best for you. And so if they see you doing something that's kind of against the grain that they don't understand, my in-laws were a lot the same. When we told them we were going to Ecuador, my mother-in-law cried, and my father-in-law was like, well, if you want to go waste a year in Ecuador, go right ahead. Because in their mind, all they understood was the corporate world. And so they were encouraging my husband, Ben, to just climb the corporate ladder like they did and stay with the company, stay with the company, stay with the company. And when we didn't do that, it just kind of freaked them out because they didn't understand the internet. They use the internet, of course, but they didn't understand how bloggers make money, how affiliate marketing works, or any things that I'm doing now to generate income. And then many of them probably would have no idea what SEO was and things like that. So it's just like a different generation. And so understanding oftentimes where the negative voices in our sphere of influence are coming from, understanding their understanding or lack thereof is very key to not letting it get into your brain. And sometimes our brains can play tricks on us, and it does it through the influence of other people. So you said your partner at the time was really supportive. So that's really good. And so what does your day look like now? Do you have a ton of freedom, flexibility? What's your typical, let me just talk about the morning. What does it look like for you now that you're totally in charge of your life?
Well, define morning. How early is morning?
Do you miss the morning completely?
I think that I'm pretty good now at getting up earlier. When I first started, I kind of just was taking advantage of it, I think. I'm usually up by 10 now at the latest. And I just kind of take it easy. I really love to play music, so I like to play music in the morning. It kind of keeps me grounded and kind of like a good way to start the day. It's like a morning cup of coffee. And I think I just kind of do that until about 11 or so. And then I check emails and I kind of get into the swing of things. And I usually start working around noon, and then I finish whenever the work is done, so maybe 5, 6, sometimes later. And
how do you keep yourself on track all day, like with your to-do list and whatnot? How do you do that?
I still struggle with that. I'd say that's maybe my biggest challenge, is because my brain is a little bit like psychotic, and I like to just kind of, as soon as I get my mind off of the project at hand, I drift off to who knows where, and it's hard to get me back. So I guess I like to use like little rewards in between, especially like with writing a blog or something, like, okay, I'll get the rough draft finished, or like I'll write the intro, which I think the hardest part is the intro. You got to hook the reader. And then once you write the intro, it's like, okay, my reward is going to be this cup of coffee, or like playing my guitar a little bit, or taking a walk, or going to the river or something. Just a reward to like break the day up, and then get back and finish it and take a break and rest my eyes for a little bit or something. And not being too hard on yourself. I used to be really hard on myself in the beginning, and like telling myself I was lazy, and telling myself like, you have to adapt to your body though. Like, not everybody can just sit there and be a machine for 8 hours. If it's not you, it's not you.
It's good that you know that. We're the same in that way. You have to get to know yourself and be kind to yourself and not beat yourself up. And I work very similarly to you. I kind of sprinkle rewards throughout my day, and I say, okay, I'm going to work for half an hour and then I can go do this thing, or I get to watch my favorite show tonight. So let's make sure I get all the things on my list done and have a good attitude about it, and this is all worth it. And I mean, you have bad days and you have good days, but yeah, I think that's really good advice to break things up and just not beat yourself up, because I think trying to be a machine is a really fast way to burn out, which is, not something you want to do when you're a freelancer. So, well, what's next for you, Kevin? Are you happy with where you are? Are you growing? What's next for your business?
I think I'm growing pretty well and even faster than I thought it was going to be. I'm really kind of transitioned from originally writing just SEO articles, which are basically content as a commodity. You're writing the article just for the keyword value and the SEO juice that it gives to a blog. And now I'm writing more web copy that's actually going to be read by a lot of readers. It's meant to sell things. It's it pays better. And I've niched down a lot. I think that's important, especially when you're starting out. I guess the best advice I can give is just say you're an expert in something. Set up a website that says it could be plumbingcontent.com or theplumbingwriter.com and just put up there hey, I'm an expert at plumbing writing. I'm just using that as an example. And then just reach out on LinkedIn, tell every plumbing CEO that you're the expert, in their inbox. And then it's a good way to get 2 or 3, 4, even 5 clients and have a part-time or full-time job within a few months.
That's super smart. And there's so many different niches. I use golf and dentistry as my go-to examples of just kind of random niches that you could become an expert in.
I think it's more than randomness though. I think it's best to focus on high value ones that just rich people are doing. I chose law, and law was one of the best ones because lawyer marketing companies, they can't BS you and say they don't have money because they have a lot of money.
Yeah. You're calling them on their BS, so to speak. Well, I have one more question for you really quick because we're running out of time and I always want to make sure I cover this question for our listeners. So fear is a real thing. Well, it depends on who you ask. I think that fear is often imagined, but it can make us do or not do real things, and it can give us real results or lack of results. So what advice would you give to anyone that's sitting at home listening to this right now, or sitting on a train, going to their day job, who wants to get started doing something similar, or wants to do writing or something, but they're just scared to take that first step? What would you tell those people?
The best advice I could give is not to listen to your brain. If you have these self-defeating thoughts, which, I had plenty of them, is rather listen to the market. If people are inquiring about your service or they like your samples or hopefully sending you money to your PayPal or to your bank account, that means you're doing something right. Nobody's just going to give you money for nothing. In the beginning, I was totally just flabbergasted that people were paying me for something that I didn't think I was that good at. And, I would send them these articles and they said they were great and they sent me money for it. And I kept telling myself that this must be a joke or this can't be real. And I'm sitting at home writing and I'm making more money than I ever did before. And so yeah, if people are loving it and they're paying you for it and other people are asking you for it, listen to them and don't listen to those self-defeating voices inside your head, because it's all just it's all your mind playing tricks on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's excellent advice. Well, where can people reach you if they've got questions? And we're going to tag you, as always, in the Work at Home Heroes Facebook group. We'll tag you so you guys listening can hop over there and ask questions right there in the dedicated thread in the Facebook group. But if somebody's got a personal question, you responded to the Location Rebel post about writing, how can people reach you to ask you any questions they may have?
Yeah, you can feel free to send me an email. I don't mind. I think you have my email address already, but I can just say it. It's Kevin Meng, SEO, and my last name is MENG @gmail.com. So KEVIN MENGSEO @gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being on the show, Kevin.
Yeah, I was happy to do it.
Well, thank you for listening. Links are in the show notes as usual. Please join our Work at Home Heroes Facebook community if you haven't already. And if you're finding value in this podcast, it would mean a ton to us at Work at Home Heroes if you'd leave us a review. Thanks again and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Caitlin Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at caitlinpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Caitlin says, mo skills means mo money.